Well, when the Buffalo Bills came to Oakland, they had a pretty even matchup between the two sides. There were some advantages for both, some disadvantages for both. It really seemed like these two were built pretty similarly, despite the records coming into the game. The Raiders were 9-2, the Bills were 6-5. It really seemed like the Raiders had the huge edge. But what we saw as the game kind of wore on through the first 3.5 quarters was that they were very evenly built, and the Bills even showed to be a better team at some points of that game. However, once it kind of snowballed on them, which is the word that basically the entire locker room was using on them. 3 straight 3-and-outs. The defense couldn't stop much of anything through the air, through the ground. They couldn't really do anything to help thwart what the Raiders were doing, and that is what led to the Bills surrendering the final 29 points of the game, the Raiders winning 38-24. And now the Bills, their playoff hopes and dreams are on the brink of failure, and quite possibly, and albeit likely, that the Bills will now go 17 straight seasons without the playoffs. They need to win and win in bunches. They have Pittsburgh coming up next. After that, Cleveland. After that, Miami, and then a road game with the New York Jets to end off the season. But the Bills are going to have to basically sweep through the rest of the way because Kansas City's sitting there in a lofty spot in 5th overall. You've got Denver in 6th at 8-4. The Bills are once again finding themselves 2 games behind in that final AFC wildcard berth, and still Miami and Pittsburgh are straight ahead of them at 7-5 apiece. So they need to win out, and they need some help to get in the playoffs. But what happened in this game? Why did it, just totally crush their spirits throughout the second half there? Well, I think one of the things you can really point to before anything is the play of Tyrod Taylor. That first quarter, he was as good as I've seen him all season long. We're talking how he played against the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football, even though it was in a losing effort. But Tyrod was, winging the ball around, seeing the open field, seeing targets, hitting them accurately. It really seemed like he was having a great game, and even had some special characteristics to his game where he was able to get outside the pocket and make the Raiders, hurt a little bit after they tried to hem him up in the backfield there. But Tyrod Taylor, once they got to the second quarter and beyond, his production dipped massively. Now, in the second quarter, they couldn't do much of anything. Third quarter, right at the beginning stages, they didn't need him to do much because the running game was doing so well, and then he, of course, got out on that rollout and brought it in for a touchdown, so that was good for him. But from a passing perspective, after the first quarter, to accrue only 89 yards and miss players as much as he did, and him being not on the same page with Sammy Watkins, and some of those were Sammy Watkins' fault, so I don't want to fault him for everything, but Taylor just wasn't good enough. And the question remains about Tyrod Taylor: is he the quarterback that can help bring this team out of a hole? We have not seen it really much, other than the one time in Tennessee in the 2015 season. This is a legitimate question that the Bills must ask themselves, especially seeing as how there's only 4 games to go in this upcoming season, and then they have a $27 million decision on him. Another part of this is accountability with Tyrod Taylor. After the game, he was asked about what kind of happened with him. He was giving 1 to 3 word answers, wasn't really going in depth. The accountability at the quarterback position has to be there a little bit more than what Tyrod has shown, and I think that's another issue, but that's completely besides the point about what we saw on the field. What we saw was a player at the most important position in sports disappear for the Buffalo Bills, and that is quite simply unacceptable. For them to get to where they want to go to, for them to finally get this playoff burden off of their backs and erase the past 16 years, they need the play of their quarterback to step up and help take them out of the doldrums of the third quarter when the punting was bad, the defense was bad, the running game wasn't getting going. That's when the Tyrod Taylor starting quarterback has to step up and show that he is worthy of being in that spot and show that he can take advantage of this team and really just take a hold of this game. So the Buffalo Bills, by and large, they need a much better performance from their quarterback, and they turn the lights off because I don't know. That's what ended up happening. But the Bills, they need much more out of Tyrod Taylor. Now, other than that, we saw LaShawn McCoy in this game really take off for them. And to me, his performance in the game was something that was an act to behold. What more can you say? What more can the guy do at this point in his career and really in this season? The Bills depend on him heavily. He brought it in the game. the passing game just wasn't good enough. The defense just wasn't good enough. And we saw the two big storylines of the game really rear their ugly head here. And from an offensive perspective for the Bills, Jordan Mills was doing an okay job on Khalil Mack, especially with some help through much of the game. Khalil Mack took over by the end of it, forced both turnovers. And then, of course, the secondary for the Bills, defensively, just finally it happened. I mean, through the first half, they held Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree to 2 catches on 13 yards. Second half, they both went off. Crabtree got a touchdown. Amari Cooper got a touchdown. They both beat rookie Kevon Seymour. Corey White, as a safety, did not have much of a good day. Really a lack of success, and the safety position continues to be a weakness for this team as it kind of goes in the stretch, which leads me to believe my initial thought when Aaron Williams went down with an injury, that might be the single biggest injury for them on defense all season long because of what he meant to that team and the replacement players that they have to put in his stead. So the Bills drop this one. They're now 6-6 on the season. They're about to turn the lights off here at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. So it's probably going to end my time here. But the Bills very much need to win the final 4 games or else 17 straight years without the playoffs. And to quote LaShawn McCoy after what was just an abysmal performance through the final quarter and a half, it all happened so fast. It certainly did. Bills fans must agree. And now the Bills are sitting there on the horizon of potentially seeing another season without the playoffs. From Oakland, I'm Joe Buscaglia. We'll talk to you next time.